All right, good morning, guys. It is May 2nd, 2023. This is going to be vlog number 12. Wow, I've done 12 of these already. That's awesome. Anyway, before I start this video, I'm going to include this little clip. This is how my day started yesterday, the first day of the month. I did one of the dumbest things ever. Set my alarm like I normally do, and I had a really long night the night before. My friend just came back. He was living in Hawaii for over a year. Finally came home. I was excited to go see him. I told him, "Yeah, I'll pick you up from the airport." I got to the airport, and his flight was massively delayed. And by the time I picked him up and actually got home and got to bed, it was like 1:30 in the morning. So I was extremely tired. Plus, it takes me like a half hour to wind down for some reason. Anyway, woke up in the morning with my alarm. I thought I snoozed it. I actually turned it off like a big dummy, and I woke up and it was like 8:13. And mind you, I start at 8 o'clock, and I have a meeting at 8:15. So literally had to just jump out of bed, and run to my computer and log in so I can jump into the meeting. I turned my camera off because my hair was sticking up everywhere. I was wearing my glasses, which don't sit straight on my face, so they're kind of crooked. I looked homeless. So I was like, you know what? I told everybody, hey, I'm sorry. I just told them what happened. There was no point in lying. I just overslept. So after that, I realized I had no coffee creamer. So I'm going to attach this little video, this little video to show you what happened. Okay, this has been a pretty crazy morning. One, I'm in Walmart, still in my sweats. I had to come get coffee creamer and some milk. I was out of creamer, and I really want some coffee right now. I woke up at 8:13. I literally had to jump out of bed and just go straight to my meeting. No hair brushed, no teeth brushed. I just didn't turn my camera on, so that was pretty horrible. Ooh, wow. Those donuts look delicious. You don't eat it. That was my little adventure to Walmart. I didn't end up buying the donuts. I saw this box of donuts there and I was like, oh, those look so delicious, and I didn't buy them. Anyway, let's get into it today. So today's the second. I haven't been assigned my actual business yet, so we're working in the open pool today, which is pretty good. It's kept me very, very busy. Believe it or not, I'm working on an auto dialer. So in the first half of the day, I've already taken 19 payments. So it's been crazy this morning. Crazy. Like as soon as the call connects, I'm just going right into it. And we're just simply following up on this month's payment. So they're pretty relatively easy calls. And I was able to get through those pretty quickly. What I was going to touch on this morning is I ran into one specific item I wanted to talk about, and it was a husband and wife, and they have an account here, and the payments were set up on auto pays. Plus, they were paying like an insurance premium with us and their monthly payment. And what happened is their auto pays kept stopping and stopping and stopping, and they're not sure why. And then what ends up happening is we end up calling them and collecting it. But finally, I talked to the couple and I go, so what's causing the problem? And they're like, well, they're continuing to try to use our old account instead of the new one. And I go, oh, I could fix that. So it was just a matter of me stopping because I could have easily just taken the payment and then just said, okay, you're good. I'll just take the payment and that'll be that, and let someone else deal with the problem the following month. But that seems to be the issue that keeps happening. It keeps cycling over. So I addressed all their problems. I got the appropriate paperwork today to fix it. So it's good to go. And really, like I said, before, when you're talking to somebody on the phone, they're the most important person to you at that time. You have to address the issue and try to avoid lazy tendencies. And a lazy tendency is, let me just get this guy's payment and go to the next one because I have stuff to do. And I understand that because I've been in that position more times than I can count. But again, you want to address every issue so that it doesn't recycle back. Because had I not fixed that this morning, next month they're going to run into the same problem. And then ultimately they can create a complaint. And as I mentioned before, complaints are the last thing that we want to get. There was a time where I didn't care if I got a complaint. I just powered through. And with the way that things are nowadays with compliance rules and laws, you got to be very, very careful with what you say and what you do. And one of the most embarrassing things for a collector to go through is to sit through a meeting where you did the wrong thing on a phone call and the manager has you listen to the phone call, because I hated listening to that. And just give you an example of what I went through. Back in 2013, I transitioned from managing to starting all over collecting again. And I went to work for an agency that did like medical. They didn't do medical, they did dental collections. And then we had car collections, jewelry collections. There was club collections, like health club collections. There was delinquent utilities, all these different things we collected on. It was just a big melting pot of debt. And when I got started over there, I was really a little bit rusty. So I had to reteach myself how to work a regular business day. Because I know how to work as a manager all day, but when you go back and you start over as a collector, it's a whole different scenario. I had to get reused to setting my daily goals, setting my hourly goals, knowing what I wanted to accomplish by the end of the week, and then setting a monthly goal. I had to get all the stuff I was teaching people, I had to start to address it. And I worked there for about 6 months, and I stayed at this company for a little while, and I decided it's not a good fit for me because I was hitting goals pretty regularly, but the commissions were not very good. And I realized, I go, well, I don't want to. I don't want to burn myself out here. So I hung out for about 6 months, and then I told them, hey, you know what, guys, I really appreciate you hiring me. I definitely appreciate the opportunity, but I just don't see myself going long term here just because the commission schedule just didn't really fit my needs. And I had an offer on the table with another company, which at that time, they don't exist anymore, but it was J&L Teamworks. And when I went to go work for them, was the biggest eye opener for me. Is my first boss there, well, my only boss there, his name was Jesse. And I started working for him and I started doing really well pretty quickly. But I still had an edge to me that was there from the 90s and the early 2000s when I did student loan collections, where I was really short with the person and I just was business all the way through. In some cases, my listening skills were still very, very rusty. And he caught a call for me that was just horrible. I just slammed the person and they hung up on me, and it was just a bad call. And he had me sit there and listen to the phone call. Now, this is where, you have to put your pride aside for a second. He listened to the call and he said, do you see how you sound? And I was really abrupt with the person. And I go, yeah. And he goes, I hired you. And even though you came from student loans, I wasn't, I took a risk to bring you here because I knew that you came from a different environment. We don't do that here. And I took that one right on the chin, and I couldn't argue with them. I just said, yes, sir, I understand it won't happen again, because what can I argue? I mean, the call was horrible. I listened to it, and that was a huge, huge eye opener for me. That's when I realized I can't talk like that anymore. This is a different day and age. And I had to readjust the way that I manage my phone calls. And I really appreciated that moment, because I took it at the first, I was very embarrassed and frustrated and angry in a way, because here I am, I was a high level manager, I'm collecting again, and I'm making simple mistakes. I was more mad at myself than anything. But it was a learning situation. And that's what I'm trying to point out here is, anytime you're critiqued on something and they're giving you some advice on how to approach your phone calls, don't take it as offensive. You want to take it as, how do I take what they're giving me and apply it to future use? What I learned from that is I have to stop and listen and address the problems and offer solutions. And these are all the things that I've been sharing in all these videos that I've been doing. So anyway, I wanted to share that story. For right now, we're doing excellent. Like I said, 19 payments in the first half of the day, killing it. Everything's going exactly the way I want it to go. Starting Thursday, we should get our list late in the evening, our client list, and then Friday, I'm going to be working towards my commissions, and I'll be able to work towards my own goals. For right now, I'm just doing the best I can with the open calls. So when you're in this scenario, what I try to challenge myself with is, number one, taking as many payments as possible in a given day. So like right now, I've got 19. Since we're halfway through the day, I'm going to set a goal for myself to try to resolve 30 accounts today. I want to see if I can get to that number. And then when I'm off the dialer, because today I'm working a dialer, so it's basically dictating everything, I set phone call goals for myself. So what I'm trying to do is, on a regular daily basis, I want to try to bang out 150 on the phone calls, because since I'm not working my accounts, I'm not having to do a lot of admin stuff, so it's allowing me to dial and move quickly. So I'm going to try to set up a pace where I can knock out 150 a day. This is good, even though the accounts that I'm not working right now are really helping me, but they're going to average all my phone calls out for the month. So while I'm working open calls, I'm going to try to do 150, which is definitely more than what I would normally do. Once I get my normal accounts, I have to spend more time skip tracing them and working them. We're going to talk about skip tracing later today, but that's slows me down, in other words, so I can't really typically get 150. Right now, I think I can do it. So anyway, that's what we're going to do for now. We'll catch up later on today. I'll talk to you guys at the end of the day. Have a good one. All right, guys, that's a wrap. It's just about 5 o'clock. It's so sorry it's so gloomy in here. Let me hit this light over here. I don't know if that's going to help at all. But it is April, or I'm sorry, it's May 2nd. And I'm at my dad's working, and it just started pouring out of nowhere. It's normally pretty bright in here. The sun's coming through because we're past that daylight savings time, or we're in the day, whatever it is. So anyway, it gets darker later, and it's normally nice and bright and warm in here. And the last today, look at that. It just, ugh. Anyway, let's talk about today. I did great. Ended up resolving 25 accounts. It's a huge day for me. Again, it's not a most productive day in terms of my goals and my commissions, but it was excellent for my phone call count. My resolution count was super high today, and I got to use the auto dialer a lot today, which I never get to do. The reason we use the auto dialer today is because my department and the other departments haven't received their assignments. We're helping the open departments work the accounts, and part of that is we get to use the auto dialer. Usually I'm not a big fan of it, but it was connecting people to me left and right. But anyway, that's not what I was going to talk about today. What I was going to talk about today a little bit is skip tracing, because I kind of always bypass that subject. And I wrote down a few questions here, and I was going to try to go through these questions with you guys and give you some tips about, what to do in skip tracing and so forth. And I used to do a lot of skip tracing classes. I actually would sit down in a classroom setting with a big overhead projector, and the laptop would be connected to or the PC would be connected to the projector, so they could see everything I'm doing live on the screen. And sometimes there'd be like 20, 30 people in that classroom just watching me work. And boy, that's pressure, because I would literally pull up a bunch of accounts, and I'd show them like a page of 100 accounts. And I tell the class specifically, I go, listen, I don't want you guys to think I set this up. So you guys just pick a random account out of this 100, and I'll try to find it. And sure enough, they would almost always pick the largest balance account, which is sometimes the hardest ones to find. And I'd go, okay, and I'd pull it up and I'd start skip tracing it. Now, the things that I want to talk about though is, what to look for when you're skip tracing, how to approach it, when should I skip trace. See, the questions that I wrote down is, when do I skip trace? Well, the answer to that is you can skip trace anytime. It doesn't necessarily have to be a skip account. What a skip account means is there's no phone numbers on it. It's just maybe an address, and sometimes the address is bad. Obviously, you're going to skip trace that, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to wait to have that scenario. You can skip trace anytime. You can't make a contact, then you're going to skip trace. So that pretty much answers that question. Next question here is, how long should I spend on one account? Well, that's a good question. When you're working on an account, the key thing is that you don't want to sit and work one account for an hour. It makes no sense, because remember, you get 8 hours a day. In that 8 hours a day, like I've said many, many times, we're going to maximize results. So you want to minimize your time on an account, but you want to be very effective with it at the same time. I would say if you're spending 15 minutes skip tracing an account, you should pretty much look to start closing it down. The only time you want to keep going is if you're catching leads, and if you're getting closer and closer to contacting the person, then and then only then would you continue to skip trace it. But for the most part, you want to watch your time, be very aware of it. And the more you skip trace, the more efficient you're going to get at it, the faster you're going to get at it, and you're not going to need to use 15 minutes on one account. Because remember, we've got a daily goal, and that daily goal is also tied to an hourly goal. So I have to try to resolve as many accounts as I can in that hour. I don't want to spend too much time on one guy. But if the balance is big enough and it's going to be worth something to you, it might be worth your time. But I would say typically I wouldn't spend more than 15 minutes unless I'm catching leads. Next question here is, what should I be looking for? That's a great question. When you're skip tracing, all you're looking for is a lead. That is it. All you need is one lead. And what I mean by that is you can find something as simple as a cell number. You can find a possible employer, possible address. All you need is a lead. That's what you're looking for when you're skip tracing. Once you have a lead, you build on that lead from there. It's almost like a private investigator who's trying to solve a crime. But for me, we're not solving crimes. We're just trying to find people. So you just need a simple lead. Let's take a look here. I'll skip that question because I'm going to answer that in a second. What's the most important tool when skip tracing? I hear that a lot. The most important tool when skip tracing is your imagination. I don't mean to sound like SpongeBob. Imagination. I don't mean to sound like that. But your imagination is your most important tool. Because yes, we have the internet and Google and all these great things, but you have to think your way out of a hole. You have to figure out, how do I find this person? Where would he be? What's the logical place to look? And you have to put yourself in the place of the consumer you're looking for. How can I be contacted? Think about those things and then work backwards and try to find them. Okay, I'm going to show you guys something here that I just kind of like sketched out, and it's really, really remedial, and I apologize for that because I didn't put it on a monitor, but I'm just going to show you guys. We'll just go over it. And let's say this is your consumer, and the most common way to find somebody is a work number, a cell number, and a home number. That's why I wrote the most common and I put some arrows on there. That's the easiest way to find somebody. Most people have a work number. Most people have a cell number. Now, not everybody has home numbers these days, but some of them do. So these are the three items that you're trying to capture. If you cannot capture these three items, or you may even have a cell number or work number and you can't get hold of them, you can look for the spouse, the girlfriend, or the boyfriend. Because the spouse, the girlfriend, and boyfriend can have any of these numbers here. And that's a lead that we're talking about. You want to create a lead. If you can contact the significant other, you're good. That's where you want to go, because that'll lead you to your debtor. Next step is you want to look for neighbors. Now, sometimes you have to check with the company you're working for and see if they allow neighbor phone calls. Some do, some don't. So you want to be really, really cautious with that. I wouldn't go gung-ho calling neighbors unless you know it's okay with your employer. And typically there's rules for calling neighbors. You can call like one a day and that's it. And you can only call third parties for location information only. So you can't get too personal. You can't tell them where you're calling from, what the call's about. You can only get location information, and location information is, i.e., address, phone numbers. That's it. You can't go too deep into that, so be really careful with that. But with neighbors, I've had some really good luck in the early days of my collections. I've had some really good neighbor calls. I've actually had people just walk over to the person's house, knock on the door, hand them the phone. All these things that we used to do in the 90s, not so much legal now. So just like I said, check the rules before you call neighbors. And now we can't just send them over there. You just have to ask them for location information. Address matches. Address matches are really, really good. So let's say you have an address on somebody. You can easily Google the address. You can put that address in True People Search, and you can figure out who's living at that house. And that's going to give you a chance to find them, because maybe they're not at that house anymore, but maybe that's a relative's house, parent's house, friend's house, a known associate of the person could be living there still. It's really important to look at address matches. It can definitely give you a strong lead. Landlords are another big one. And how you get a landlord is you're going to go through what's called the property assessor. The property assessor can tell you who owns the property. Once you know who owns the property, you can look them up and give them a call. And hopefully the landlord can get you a contact number, which would be a seller or work. But in most cases, they'll probably just take a message. Now, leaving messages with third parties. I work for first party. So since I work for first party, I could leave messages with third parties. If you work for a third party agency, you cannot leave messages with third parties. So there's going to be different rules for everything that you do. So you just want to be mindful of that. And make sure you, like I said, check with your managers before you start going gung-ho. You got surnames. Now what surnames are going to be people that have the same last name as the person you're looking for. In some cases, a surname can give you thousands of hits. You don't want to start calling surnames for Smiths. Makes no sense. But if you have somebody who has a very complicated or uncommon last name, surnames are gold because sometimes you can find a quick match. It could be a parent, it could be a cousin, uncle, who cares who it is. As long as they know who your person is, you're gold. And then you've got coworkers. Now, the reason I wrote coworkers down is you could be calling a place of business looking for somebody. You make the phone call to the place of business, the person answers the phone. It's not your consumer at the place of business. So you're asking them, can I speak with John Doe? If they tell you, he's not available, he works in the field, he works on the line, whatever the case may be, he may be working remote, you can utilize the coworker to secure a good, solid message to the person you're trying to reach. That's all you need. Like I said, is just a lead. The more leads you capture, the better your chances are getting that contact, the better of getting the contact, the higher chance you're going to get that resolution. And the one thing that I was taught years ago is the accounts that you have to look for and earn are the ones that are most likely going to pay. So it is worth your time, in other words, to master some skip tracing steps. And then, of course, the parents, that's an obvious one. The social media aspect. Now, this has opened up huge, huge advantages for me as a debt collector. When I first started collecting, there was no social media. I mean, there's really no internet. Nobody really had cell phones. So it was, 3 times as hard or 10 times as hard as it is now. Social media with Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, those are just my 3 favorites to help you locate or narrow somebody down. A lot of people post on social media, and this is definitely going to help you track them down. And sometimes just a simple Google search. What I do if I'm completely at a loss trying to find somebody, first name, last name, city, state, enter on Google and just see what happens. Sometimes you just get nothing, but sometimes it'll just bam, pop right up and you can see their name, phone number, or it'll lead to a business that they're associated with. Maybe they posted on somebody's vlog, maybe they commented on somebody's vlog, anything. It can show social media links. So Google is really, really good. And this is something that I really, really, really wish I had, back in the 90s, because really we just had to use straight imagination and just grind on the phone. Social media and Google can get the place that you need to be 10 times as fast. So that's why it's definitely worth looking. You can do Google searches while the phone's ringing, because the problem that we have is most people rely on that one, the cell number, and they're calling it over and over and over. And sometimes that's okay, because sometimes eventually you'll catch the person. But let's face it, man, if somebody doesn't want to talk to you, they just don't answer. It's pretty much that easy. So while you're listening to that phone ring, pop your information into Google, do a quick search, and see if you get a match. Because if you can get another alternative to reach somebody, you're gold. You're definitely getting closer to a contact. And that's why I put all these little arrows around this little stick figure. Sorry it's so crude, but this tells you all the different ways that somebody can be contacted. It's ridiculous. And what I used to tell during my classes, when I would do skip tracing classes, I would tell the class, I go, listen, every single person in here has a cell phone, right? Is there anybody in this class that doesn't have a cell phone? Raise your hand. Nobody would raise their hands. Everybody had a cell phone. And so I would say, in your cell phone, how many phone numbers do you think you have stored in your phone? Just take a wild guess. And I guarantee you, most of you have at least 100 phone call numbers in your phone. At least. It could be less, but realistically, we're carrying around our address books with us. There's contact information in there that us as debt collectors can use. So keep that in mind. If someone says they don't have a phone number, can you check? I think I talked about that before in a previous video, because in that address book is everything. And this is going to make me laugh, but I'm thinking back to the earlier days of me doing this collections. I would think about, what does everybody's home look like? Where do they store numbers? At my parents' house, they had a metal. It was about the size, maybe a little bit bigger than this pad, and you push a button, the door opens up, and it was all their phone numbers that were stored in there. And that's how we would store phone numbers. But now we don't need to do that all manually anymore. Everything is inside your cell phone. Keep that in mind when you're skip tracing. Think of yourself. How do I get hold of somebody? How do I get hold of a friend that I needed to reach? If something happened and you needed to reach somebody, how would you do it? how many people are connected to that person. And that's exactly how you skip trace. Anyway, we'll get more into detail on that later. I can actually show you some quick, easy steps. But this is just something to kind of plant a seed so that you don't get stuck in that trap of just dialing the same phone numbers over and over and over again. All right, guys, thanks for watching. That's it for tonight. We'll knock out another one of these hopefully in the next couple weeks. I do got to do some BMX stuff. I'm behind on that. But anyway, thanks for watching again, guys. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I will talk to you guys later. Remember, work hard, set goals, make that money. Let's go. See you guys later.